Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about books that I think are worth the hype. I feel like whenever books become more and more popular, you want to know. You want to know. So you read it, and sometimes they become also favorites, or at least you understand why they're so popular. And then sometimes you don't. You don't. I will be doing that video soon too. But today we're starting with 10-ish books that I think are absolutely worth checking out. There is one wild card. We're going to keep that for the end. By the way, my shelves are looking very sad in the background and empty because I've been filming so many videos this week. I've been posting almost every 2 days, and I'm going to keep going to do that until the end of the year, probably. So we're going to start with something that I never thought I would say is worth the hype before I tried it, and it is Atomic Habits. Hear me out. I feel like in general, this list is like one side of the axis is my enjoyment of it, and the other one is the popularity. And this is extremely popular, so I wanted to try it. I thought this was going to be another one of those like bro recommendation books, like wake up at 4 in the morning or you're a worthless piece of those kind of vibes, and it's not like that at all. Do I think the topic is very unique? No, it's been done a million times. So I do think that this book is especially good at breaking down each of those sections into very small, tiny bites. Even each chapter, you get a summary at the end of it, like here. And it might feel unnecessary for some people, but I think this is the kind of books that deserves to be reread. I think an audiobook format is also really good because it makes you want to go and do things. So I would recommend the audiobook. Super accessible, definitely makes it something you can implement into your life very easily. So he was talking, for example, about habit stacking. So you basically link a current habit to a new habit you want to start doing every day, or how many times you want a day. So for example, if you want to read more nonfiction books, it could be, okay, I love, relaxing, drinking my coffee in the morning. So instead of scrolling on my phone or something, I will be reading 5 pages a day while I drink my coffee. You will have to read your coffee every day, so like you might as well. So that's the kind of advice you get in this book. So groundbreaking, no, but I do think that the format makes it extremely accessible. So I understand the hype. Never thought I would say that, but I do. I do. Another book that took me by surprise by how much I ended up enjoying it is East of Eden. I feel like classics can be so hit and miss because there's just so much hype, especially when like everyone seems to give it a 5-star and you're like, it's a little suspicious, especially like modern classics, but still a classic. I feel like sometimes you wonder, do people feel the pressure to give it a 5-star? Is it truly a 5-star? So I went into it a little skeptically. It is a brick, and it didn't help that when I was trying to find one day what to read, I read the first chapter of a couple books, including this one, and I was like, oh, this is not going to be for me. And to be fair, when I tried to eventually actually read the book, the first chapter was still a bit of a pain, but then things pick up at chapter 2. So like, do not fear, do not fear. I don't think I got everything out of it. I do think like if you were to read this in school, you probably would get more out of it because of the whole like 2 brothers fighting each other and the whole like Abel and Cain kind of references, which I know nothing of. With that in mind, I still really enjoyed it, got really emotionally invested in the stories. I was also afraid at time because there is an Asian character that it was going to go in that direction, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to go. And even like the way the female characters were handled was overall, I don't want to spoil too much, right? But I do think this was absolutely worth the hype and understand why it's been popular for so long. And I mean, when was it published? 1952. So while this was definitely a surprise, again, worth the hype, but now I need to know, what else do I need to read by him? Is everything this good? I've been liking this author for a little while now, and it is Emily Henry. I really loved Beach Read and Book Lovers. We're going to be talking about both, but I did let someone borrow this copy, which I don't do super often. It's usually, thank you, Claudia. It's usually only to people I trust and books that I really love because I want them to also read them, right? Because that's the best part of hype books. It means that everyone has read them, everyone. So you get to talk about them with a lot of people. So I don't read a ton of romance, but I've read most of her books, definitely her most recent ones. What I enjoyed is that she tends to mix more serious topics, usually like kind of family drama. Drama might not be the right word, dysfunction in the families. And then you get, yes, the romance, but the side characters have well-developed characters, which is key, it seems, for me. You also don't tend to rely too much on tropes I don't really care for. Usually it's not like pages and pages of miscommunication. It tends to be resolved fairly maturely, especially again in these 2 books. Or other books, it's more hit and miss. But these 2, that was what I liked. They're also haters to lovers. enemies to lovers. So main character is struggling to write a book and she has to go and empty a house that was left behind by her father when he passed away. So grief is definitely a big part of the story in here. And like I said, you get more side characters that are likable, enjoyable, and then the guy next door. The guy next door. Let's just go with that. So I really enjoyed that this mix together of just side characters that are interesting. Yes, the romance is obviously a big part of it. That's what the goal is here. It's a romance book, but you get serious topics again like grief. So I really enjoy this one. And book lovers in this one, main female character, there is a romance with again enemies to lovers. This is part of the publishing industry. Once again, she does that a lot and it works. We love it, right? Books. And in this one, she worked, in a big city. She met this man instantly, can't stand each other. And then she goes on a trip with her sister. It's going to be their last trip for a while. And they are going to this town who is from a well-known book. It's like a trip of a lifetime for them. And she ends up starting to do a lot of things, kind of create a little life there for herself. And, romance happens. I don't want to, but you get, again, sisters, complex relationships, her having to make decisions about her life in a small town. Those are all things that work for me. So in general, really love Emily Henry. And I think these might be her two more popular books, and they're definitely my favorites. So I feel like people tend to either love these two or they love People We Meet on Vacation or the other one. Claudia, I swear. She's been a little pot of glue lately. Yes. I know. It's because she's been on the diet, okay? She has lost half a pound. We're very happy and proud for her, but she has been relentless. People tend to be divided which books of hers they prefer, but for me, Yellow and Blue. I had to mention this one because it makes me giggle. I was tricked into reading Atonement. Not really. I was tricked into reading this because I didn't know it was World War II, and I said, I'm not reading another one. And I read another one, and not only that, I liked it. To be fair, my favorite part is the romance, I guess. It's a tiny part of the book, but not so much the World War II section. But I do think it's worth it. I've seen so many clips of these scenes with Keira Knightley. So that influenced me wanting to read it. And when I finally got around to reading it, I have to admit, it was indeed worth the hype. I wasn't sure about the writing at first, but eventually things make sense. Again, I don't want to spoil it, even though they're so popular, but I don't want you to have any idea what you're going into. That's the best part of experiencing these books, I feel like. But a little bit of the romance, main character, a young girl who likes to write these stories, and then one day she sees her sister in a compromising moment with a boy, and things happen, influences everyone's life. And yeah, it's definitely worth the hype. It's definitely worth checking out if you still haven't. The movie was good, but they changed a few things. So I feel like it makes it worth it to read the book, even if you may have watched the movie. So reluctantly, I have to admit it was worth it. I feel like there are a few of those in here, which makes it even more interesting. So the next one, not reluctantly, I am 100% fangirling over this series. I'm in love. I will keep raving about it. I've talked about it a lot, but My Brilliant Friend, the first book in the Neapolitan series, I love this. I love this. There are 4 books. They are so worth it. There's a TV show. It's in Italian. You can watch it with subtitles. I've done that. It's great. It's great. But of course, the book, you get so much more to it. So in this story, you're following these 2 women, their friendship over 60 years. So beginning, you see one of them in their 60s saying that one of them disappeared, and she's kind of sitting down and writing their story, their whole friendship, their whole lives. And they start back at like 5-ish. And you see the mess that is their life. Not just them, it's also everyone from their neighborhood. And it's really character driven in a really interesting way. And you're so emotionally invested in everyone. You need to know what's going to happen because, of course, the decisions of a few influence everyone. And it's not just about their friendship. Overall, the theme of the series is class. So it does talk a little bit about politics, but it's mostly how these events affect everyone, poverty, violence, and them trying to escape all of it. And so in love with this series. You just want to, when you're so emotionally invested, you want to shake these characters because they keep making decisions. Claudia, if you touch that mirror, I will end you. So if I could only force you to read one book in this video, I think it would be this one. It's probably the least hype in Canada, US. I feel like this was quite popular in Europe, but it's been getting more and more hype, and it 100% deserves it. It is so readable. 4 books, you're going to want to binge read them and find out what happens to these characters over those 60 years. And so good. So yes, absolutely worth the hype. Easily. It's definitely going to make it to my best of the year because I read the 4th book this year, and The Shadow of the Wind. I don't even know. Would you consider this a little bit magical realism? Is it just historical fiction? Or literary fiction? Everyone says it sounds like I'm saying literally. It's the accent. It's the Invisaligns. Literary fiction. The main character, as a young boy, went to this library with his father. He finds this mysterious book called The Shadow of the Wind and falls in love with it. And whenever he becomes an adult, he tries to find out about the author, about his other books, and figures out that someone is buying them, making them disappear, burning them, and he's just trying to find out what happens. The mystery of this takes over his life. And there's a lot more to it. I personally was really invested. I love the writing. My only issue, and the asterisk here, is that the sexism is a little bit much. I feel like I was really trying to look past it. I couldn't do it for the 2nd book. I had to put it down. But for this one, I thought it was still worth it. And I still think it's worth the hype even though. And I'm usually pretty sensitive to that. So I feel like keep that in mind. But this definitely has a cult behind this series. But yes, the 1st book was worth it. I didn't make it far in the 2nd one, so I can't tell you about that. But this one, yeah, worth it. Let's sneak in one more nonfiction because why not? I feel like it deserves sometimes a lot more hype. And this one, the title caught everyone's attention, and it is I'm Glad My Mom Died. Yeah, that quite the title. And I will admit, I didn't grow up watching her TV shows because I didn't speak English, and by the time they were translated, I think I was too old. But, this actress is definitely very famous, and I listened to it as an audiobook, which I recommend because she's the one narrating it. You definitely get a lot of emotions in there. And she discusses her life, or very complicated relationship with her mother, and how she had to deal with a lot of these emotions, like being a child and having to be the breadwinner and dealing with toxic family, especially again her mother, and the pressure of looking good, performing. It's just a lot, and it was really interesting to see her go through it, express her experience, talk about it, how it affected her. And I feel like it was kind of bold, not just even, the title, yes, but also quite bold because she names other the people like Ariana Grande. So yeah, I liked it. I get the hype. Definitely worth checking out if you have yet to do it. It was a fairly quick audiobook too, but yes, I really, really enjoyed that one. You might want to look up trigger warnings for these kind of topics and ED. Another romance, because they're so popular, and I used to be not a hater, but a little skeptical. I kept being burned a little bit, and I think that I just was over those YA and love fantasy that turned out to be romance and just not having enough substance, like it's just a romance. I like when they have more to them. And this one, I listened to it as an audiobook, which I feel like that was risky because you never know. But Part of Your World made me giggle. I was kicking my little feet listening to this one, and I was finding excuses to listen to it more, like go on little walks, doing my dishes, listening to it because I needed to know. So if that's not the best sign. So in this one, you have main character. It seems to be the trope of like rich city girl and the man from the small town, and it starts with her car goes into a ditch. Straight up, we're starting with the drama, and then the main male character arrives, helps her out. She's a little skeptical at first, and then you get more to it, and you do get some like complex family relationships. But I'm a big sucker for small town, and you get those vibes in there too. And I appreciated how, for once, it feels like you get a mentally stable and healthy main male character. We like the maturity. We do. He's younger than her, but he's definitely stable, okay, and enjoyable and likable. I'm so sick of reading books where they're super toxic, or like they'll randomly say something awful and like she forgives them, but I don't. Like it happened to me a couple times, and people are raving about these books, and I'm like, I can't support that romance. If she was my friend, I would never, I'd be happy, but like I would never forgive him. But no, he was fine. He was great. So seal of approval here if you're looking for a new romance book to try. It was a great audiobook too. Again, would recommend. I did read the whole series. In my opinion, this one is the strongest. So I have issues with the second one, but This one was good. Third was pretty good too, but the second one, another nonfiction that I think is absolutely worth the hype would be Know My Name. I listened to this one recently as an audiobook and it was heavy, so definitely some trigger warnings here. Obviously, Chanel, the author, writes her story when she was raped by Brock Turner. I think he goes by Alan now, but I knew about the situation. I feel we all did, but this was so much worse than I expected. Getting all the details that I hadn't heard of, and from her point of view, you forget how long it takes also between, when it happens, how traumatic the whole process is. And again, it takes so long for justice to be served, and we can't really say that justice was really served there. 3 months for, what was that saying? 20 minutes of action. Um, yeah, would definitely recommend this audiobook. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's quite long. Like, I don't know how much more information I will get out of it. And no, it was absolutely worth all of it. The author is really good at writing too, so yes, would recommend this one. It's obviously a difficult topic, but it was worth checking out. Definitely worth the hype. A lot of you told me to pick it up because it had been on my TBR or on my waiting list at the library for a long time, and you were right. And this is my wild card, which I don't know if you could see it in the background, but I wanted to give it a shout out because I mentioned the axis. You get popularity and then my enjoyment. And this one is so popular that I got sucked into it. I wanted to see if it was worth the hype. And that video was testing too, and this one was by far the best one. And it is One Dark Window. Listen, I enjoyed it so much more than I expected. Is it an all-time favorite? No, but this reminded me of those like dystopian fantasy that we used to read growing up. we. That I used to read, 10 years ago and loved. You do get insta love, which is like the one thing that but the world building seems interesting enough that you get sucked into it, and it's very, very readable, which I think is again the strength of these kind of books. So in this fantasy world, people can be infected by the mist and it gives them magical powers, and if you are found out, you are, because you're cursed if you are. And the main female character did get infected. She was sick and she thinks that she's fine, even though she can hear voices, a voice in her head. So she has been hidden away with her family, kind of hiding from court, but then she has to go for this big event. And there's the little bit of a insta-love situation that happens. What's important to know also is that the king has been trying to accumulate these cards, these magical cards, which it's okay to use those cards though. And if you accumulate all of them, then you can reverse this curse, the mist, this disease. And book 2 is quite different. I did read it because it was only one more and everyone was saying it was better. I don't think so. You're almost following different characters, again, keeping it vague, but I think book 1 was the most readable one between the two. And if you don't mind, insta love and those kind of, I don't think this one is considered YA, but like a little bit those vibes, extremely readable. I get the hype. Again, not an all-time favorite, but I read it super quickly too. So this is my top 10, 11 really popular books that I thought were worth the hype. Again, keep in mind popularity, enjoyment, but these were all, I was going to say fun, that's not true. Some of them are difficult topics, but these were all really enjoyable to go through. I found them really, really interesting, and I do think a lot of you would enjoy them too. So if you thought they had a lot of hype and you weren't sure if they were worth it, I say yes. So if that convinces you, would recommend them. As always, I will link all of them in the description box if you want to check them out. And as soon as the other version is available, it will also be in there and on the screen actually. I've done these kind of books videos in the past, so I'll put some there too. That way you can check out more popular books that I think are worth the hype. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.